Hey guys, today we're squeezing through a narrow gangway, past racks of pipes and humming control panels, and into one of the Navy's most secretive Cold War weapons, the USS Billfish, SSN 676. You might be wondering what it's like to live inside a steel tube hundreds of feet below the surface of the ocean, surrounded by freezing darkness, nuclear power, and other dudes who haven't seen sunlight in weeks. Spoiler alert, it's cramped, it's loud, and you probably won't survive this if you're claustrophobic. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Bonus points if it's after midnight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into today's journey together. You duck through the hatch of the Billfish, with a duffel bag slung over your shoulder, eyes adjusting to the dim fluorescent glow. The metal walls sweat with condensation. Somewhere beneath your boots, a nuclear reactor purrs like an overfed mechanical cat. This isn't a hotel with a hull. It's a floating pressure cooker designed to vanish into the ocean for months at a time. Welcome aboard. Commissioned in 1971, the Billfish is part of the Sturgeon-class, the Navy's workhorse during the Cold War. She's not flashy, not like the later Seawolf-class hotshots, but she's smart, sturdy, and sneaky. Exactly the kind of sub that slips beneath Soviet radar, ghosts through hostile waters, and returns with stories no one's allowed to tell. You share a bunk with two other guys. Yes, share. Hot bunking, it's called. One sleeps while the other works, and you just hope nobody sweats too much on the pillow. Privacy? Ha! You're lucky if your footlocker doesn't get sat on during lunch. And meals. Actually, the feud isn't bad. There's a running joke that Navy submarines are floating diners with torpedoes. You get steak on Sundays, powdered eggs the rest of the week, and canned peaches that might outlast the sun. Somewhere, someone's hoarding all the Pop-Tarts. First patrol. The sub dives, and you feel it in your chest. That slight drop in gravity, the hiss of ballast tanks, the way the surface world peels away like wallpaper. Above you, 400 feet of seawater and the crushing weight of the Atlantic. You train constantly. Drills, sonar sweeps, reactor checks, even the occasional simulated flooding where you have to fix a leak before the whole compartment fills up. Quotation marks mandatory, but your adrenaline doesn't know the difference. And always, there's the sonar room. Quiet, red-lit, and weirdly hypnotic. You learn to recognize the signature hum of container ships, distant whales, the creak of ice shifting in the far north. Sometimes you swear you hear things that aren't there. No one ever talks about that. The Cold War is in full swing, and Billfish prowls waters she isn't technically supposed to be in. Soviet trawlers lurk nearby, festooned with antennas. You pretend not to see them. They pretend not to see you. It's a game everyone plays. You listen more than you speak, track more than you follow. Historians still argue whether these patrols were meant for deterrence or provocation. You're just trying not to spill your coffee in a turn. One night, mid-patrol, the boat goes dark. Emergency lighting flickers. You hold your breath. Somewhere aft, an alarm blinks red. Reactor glitch? Electrical fault? Sabotage? You're not told. The captain stays calm, and so does the XO, but you can feel the crew tighten like a coiled spring. 30 minutes later, lights return, and the boat resumes course like nothing happened. No one mentions it again, not even at mess. They say submarines go quiet in two ways, by design or by failure. you prefer the first. You pass time with cards, movies from 5 years ago, and books that smell like diesel and salt. Someone brought a Rubik's Cube, and now half the crew is obsessed. You dream of fresh air and forget what birds sound like. Oh, and showers? You ration water. You don't smell yourself after a while. But you do smell the guy in the bunk next to yours. You get nose blind by week 3. That's when people stop caring about clean socks. You surface through a patch of fog near Iceland. A pod of orcas tracks you, curious, surfacing alongside. One sailor insists they're Soviet spy whales. You laugh, but only kind of. Anything is possible. Out here. In 1983, a Russian sub actually got tangled in a fishing net off Scotland and was stuck for hours. Quick effect? Sure. Also terrifying. Later, you're told the orcas are just a coincidence. You're not sure. You start naming them. The Billfish sails beneath Arctic ice, part of a routine patrol that's anything but. You hear the groaning of ice pressing on the hull, like giants walking overhead. One crack, and this boat would crumple like a soda can. You try not to think about it. You do anyway. You pass through the GUIQ gap, the naval choke point between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK. Classic Cold War real estate. This is where subs tail other subs, like underwater shadow boxing. You're told to stay silent. No metal on metal. No coughing these sensitive microphones. One ping, and someone up there might come looking. Someone once dropped a wrench in the machinery room, and the captain made him do galley duty for a week. Not because of the noise, because of the stress he caused. Everyone jumped, you included. At some point, time unravels. Is it Tuesday? Saturday? 030? Who knows? You live in watch rotations now. 6 hours on, 12 off, repeat. Your dreams are weird. And when you wake, you're not sure you ever slept. You get a beer day halfway through patrol. 1 can, lukewarm, government issued. You celebrate like it's New Year's. Then the sonar techs hear something. Well, unusual cavitation. A trail moving oddly fast. Not a whale. Not a cargo ship. A Soviet Akula. Class sub? Possibly. You go to quiet. Everyone tiptoes. The Billfish becomes a ghost. You track each other for 6 hours, then break contact. Nothing happens. Everything happens. That's life under the surface. When you finally return to port, everything smells too fresh, too loud, too bright. You realize you've been clenching your jaw for 2 months, but deep down, you miss the hum of the engine, the stillness, the strange comfort of knowing that while the world spins in chaos above, you were beneath it, unseen. You're barely off the gangway, and already someone's calling you back. The next deployment looms just weeks away, and the Billfish isn't one for long vacations. The hull's still cold when you board again, and your sea legs haven't had time to forget the way the floor tilts under you at night. Back aboard, things feel familiar, too familiar. The same creaks in the pressure hull, the same low rattle from the mess fridge, and the same quiet hum of reactor cooling pumps. You drop your gear in your rack, and someone's already stolen your preferred corner in the crew lounge. Rank has its privileges, they say. You're the same rank. Apparently, so is everyone. But there's tension now, the kind that doesn't say its name. The Cold War is heating in weird places. KL-007 was shot down not long ago, and the Navy's on edge. The Billfish's next orders are hush-hush, sealed envelope level, the kind where even the captain has to break wax when you're already underway. You dive again, this time into the unknown. Patrolling near the Norwegian Sea, you're briefed on an odd mission. You're to remain in total radio silence for an indefinite period, observing acoustic anomalies near the Soviet Northern Fleet's turf. That's code for spy on the enemy without getting caught. It's also code for try not to start a nuclear war. No pressure. Historians still argue whether these missions were surveillance or bait meant to lure enemy boats into exposing themselves. You try not to think about what would happen if someone pressed the wrong button. It's not a war game anymore. It's hide and seek with stakes that could light up half the hemisphere. Your life narrows again to 300 feet of corridor, a sky made of steel, and a world reduced to sonar blips. The enemy is a sound, a vibration, a pattern too regular to be nature. You learn to distinguish the frequency of a Soviet sub's propeller shaft from that of a NATO destroyer 3,000 miles away. It's like hearing whispers through concrete. One night, the boat jolts, just slightly. Not a full collision, but a brush, maybe with ice, maybe with something else. The watch officer says it's nothing. But for the next 48 hours, the crew tiptoes. Tools get strapped down. Meals are eaten quietly. You all know, if something's out there, and it knows you're here, it won't announce itself with a knock. In the torpedo room, you help run drills with practice weapons. There's a strange comfort in handling a Mark 48, sleek and sleeping in its rack, like a silver shark. But you also know what it does when it wakes up. Someone jokes about giving one a name. Debbie, maybe. Feels less lethal that way. Meanwhile, deeper secrets churn. One of the radio men starts acting strange. Won't meet anyone's eyes. Flinches at every alarm. You learn later he had a cousin in the Soviet Navy, and rumor spreads he's under surveillance by your own command. Nothing official, but suddenly he's on cleaning duty 24/7 and nowhere near classified systems. Whether he ever did anything wrong, no one knows. You all just nod. Quietly. Submarines thrive on silence, even among themselves. There's also a weird little legend passed down that the Billfish once followed a Soviet sub so long, the sonar team started dreaming in Russian. It's a joke, sure, but also not really. After days of tracking the same acoustic signature, you start to feel like you know the other vessel, like it has a personality. The sonar guys nickname it Ivan. Ivan is fast, twitchy, and unpredictable. And one night, Ivan just vanishes. You don't hear him again for the rest of the patrol. Fringe theories bubble up during long shifts. One guy swears there are dead zones in the ocean where sonar doesn't work and time goes weird. He talks, but part of you remembers how long that reactor reboot took last patrol and how the clocks didn't quite match afterward. Another guy claims he heard Morse code tapping on the hull, as if someone outside was trying to get in. You tell him to drink less instant coffee, but then the chief engineer quietly swaps out the acoustic sensors the next day. You surface during a storm. Swells rise like hells, and the boat rocks hard enough to toss trays in the galley. Rain slams the sail, and a few unlucky topside crew get soaked just climbing up for watch. You stay below, but you feel the ocean flexing around you, reminding you that yes, it can still swallow you whole. A Soviet cruiser appears on the horizon the next day. Just a shadow. Just a blip. It doesn't fire. Doesn't hail. Just follows. For hours, the captain gives no order to dive. It's a standoff of silence. Then, as if bored, the cruiser peels away. It feels personal, like it knows your name. A week later, a sonar contact startles the room. A high-speed approach. Deep, shallow, deep again. No known ID. Not NATO. Not Soviet. Too fast for a sub, too slow for a jet. The techs go pale. You turn everything off. Drift like a rock. Listen. And it's gone. Some say it was a false echo. Others say you brushed against something classified enough not even the captain could log it. Either way, the next few days feel off. Even the reactor room runs quieter than usual. Eventually, you head back toward friendly waters. The sea feels warmer. The tension melts, slightly. You let yourself daydream about steak, sunlight, maybe a real pillow. Maybe. But just before docking, a junior tech finds a strange scratch along the outer hull. No clear origin. Looks like a claw mark. The inspection team shrugs it off. Probably ice. Sure. Ice. You dock. You unload. You blink at the sky like a newborn. No one asks what happened out there. No one would believe you anyway. Weeks later, you're in a bar with other crew. Someone tells a new guy about Ivan, the Soviet sub that disappeared. Someone else says they're transferring to another boat. You think about the Billfish, waiting in dry dock, resting, but not asleep. You know you'll go back. You always do. Now, let your body sink into stillness for a moment. Picture the hum of the reactor, slowly fading, replaced by nothing but the soft rhythm of waves brushing against the hull. You're lying in your rack again. Not a bunk, really. More like a padded drawer, but it's oddly comforting. Above you, a thin sheet of metal separates you from thousands of feet of ocean. Around you, the boat has quieted. The drills are done. The engines, silent. The sea is holding its breath. You remember how the red lighting made everyone look like ghosts, how the coffee always tasted slightly burnt, and how silence could be louder than shouting. You remember how you counted the rivets in the ceiling above your bunk, memorized every creak in the bulkhead, and eventually stopped noticing the smell of diesel and metal. It's funny, isn't it? How the most intense moments don't always arrive with alarms, but with quiet, a sonar blip, a missing sound, a breath held too long. And yet, you were there. You lived it. You endured the pressure, the isolation, the unknown. The ocean didn't swallow you. The silence didn't drive you mad. You came back. And now, you're here. So close your eyes. Let that low, steady hum in your mind carry you a little deeper into rest. No alarms, no drills, just you, the dark, and the deep waiting, quietly, peacefully, far below the noise of the world. Sleep well, sailor.